G'day, champs. How you going? Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Tee and Ree Connecting. I am Tee.
I am Ree.
And we have a very special guest, Miriam Francis. Woo-hoo! Today, as usual, I'm winging it, just like my eyeliner. And we're going to be talking... Sorry, I do like saying that. And we're going to be talking about Scientology front group or... the thing, CCHR. Hello, everybody. Let's see if some more people come in. We've got 4 people at the moment. 2 are incognito. Hello, whoever you are. Oh, no. We've got Maya. Hello. Maya lives in Norway, I believe, which is amazing. We've got Mad Drop there. Are you modding for me tonight, darling? See how you go.
Oh, sweet.
There's Ree. Hello. Are you exteriorizing? What are you doing?
Well, I just thought I'd leave a message.
None of your business. You have. I know you've emailed me and stuff, and I do need to get back to you. I have quite a few emails, and I've been really crap. And I'm aware of having white boxes on myself as well, which Miriam reckons is me going OT, possibly. Like, I'm not following the tech properly, obviously. Something's going on.
I think you went OT 9 and 10, so.
All right. I glitched. Yeah. But yeah, it's annoying me, but I think it's because I'm in a rental at the moment, and I've got like these really annoying vertical blinds, and one of them's missing. Like the thing, normally I can fix it, but the bar at the top's broken, so you just have to deal with it. So, yes, today we're going to be talking about CCHR. Should I just dive straight in?
Yeah.
I think so.
You're all good, ladies? All right. Yeah. I have kind of lined my stuff up, I hope. So should we just have a look at the Australian CCHR website, I think. I had so much stuff and my brain is all higgledy-piggledy all of the time. And I could have put loads and loads and loads of stuff, but it'd probably be super boring. So I've minimized it as much as I can, and we can just discuss how we feel about it. And yeah, so I'm going to go share screen. Hopefully that is going to work. I haven't done this for ages. It's been like a couple of months, hasn't it, since I did?
It has.
Actually, yeah. Okay. Wow. So then I have to go back there. So CCHR. Oh, I've been reading it already. Should we watch this little video? What do you reckon?
Sure.
Yeah.
Give it a whirl. Is that working?
Yep.
His face. Well, Ree, I could see your face through that. Mad Drop Bear, sorry, I just want to give some props to Mad Drop Bear here, right? Because I asked him if he wanted to be a mod the other day, and he was like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure. What do you have to do and all this? And look at this.
It's beautiful.
He's doing very well.
You gorgeous soul. Honestly, I really appreciate you. Thank you. And do you know what? He's such a good egg. He always makes me laugh. You know, he's very funny in the chat and stuff that we have. But yes, thank you for that. That's lovely. been doing your research, haven't you? No, I'm joking. That's pretty good. Anyway, sorry, the video. What did you think of that? Very powerful video, right?
So I've never seen that, and I've never watched an ad for Scientology that I'm aware of. That's the first one I have seen.
Okay.
And I've just written down the hypocrisy. Like, I'm horrified at what they're saying we could say about them. Like, it is such a pointing the finger, and I'm really quite shocked at seeing that.
Yeah. So for me, I think that, I always try, we just want to make it clear that we're not having I don't want to be like a whole, we're going at Scientology and they're wrong and everything. We want to have a balanced kind of discussion about it. And what I see so for people who don't know, last month I actually went to a CCHR event, like a pop-up tour of the museum, the psychiatry, the industry of death, like museum pop-up thing. And I went inside and I took some undercover footage, but it's such a big video, I can't get it onto the bloody computer. I don't know how to do it. Oh no, I've got it on YouTube actually. That's private, but I haven't watched it myself. It's not very good. And then I wore the glasses as well, and I've got all these files. But I left my house with some house sitters, and I've come back and my laptop's not here. So either I've hidden it somewhere and I've forgotten, or it's gone walking.
Stolen.
But it's a really crappy laptop anyway. But that's the only way I've got of putting it onto my computer, is because it's with an SD card, and I don't have an SD card slot in my computer, but I will get one anyway. So what I've gathered from it is like, because I always try to see things from different perspectives and put myself inside other people's heads. Some people are scared of psychiatric practices. They've had bad experiences and things like that. That's fine. I mean, it's not fine, but we have to take that into account. But it seems that they take some truths and exaggerate them and twist it to their own narrative, in my opinion. And just the stuff that was in that exhibition was horrendous. But yeah, in regards to the video, it's putting some really, really strong statements out there with not really, well, we'll carry on looking at the site. Actually, no, sorry, because this site is different to the mobile site. When I read on the mobile site, it's giving all these figures of how many of children from 0 to 5 that have been put on psychiatric drugs. And, people having electric shock treatment. And actually, SP Crusader, when I was in the UK, she'd looked up how many people in the UK had electric shock treatment that year. And it was something like 1,600 out of a population of 80 million, So these are tiny, tiny little percentages, which I'm not saying they don't matter, like everyone matters, but they are using the tiny little bits to make it look like the whole industry is, murderers and all of this, which is, I think, very dangerous. But yeah, what do you reckon, Miriam?
What year were those statistics from with SP Crusader?
This year.
Last year. So
last year.
Are you saying that electric shock treatment is still going on?
Yes.
Very, very
Miriam, it's been refined. I was horrified to think that it still goes on until I spoke to a doctor friend of mine who's now deceased, who actually had electric shock as a treatment. She was a survivor from the cult The Family. Do you know The Family?
Mm-hmm.
The Victorian cult.
Did she receive it? Or yeah.
Right. And because I was horrified, and she said no, nothing got me out of whatever I was in. So I'm not an advocate for it. I just have one experience of one person I know who's had it in the last 10 years, but it's been refined. It's not what it was when asylums were around. It's not the same process any longer.
Yeah. And that's what I noticed as I went around.
So this is what I would say.
Yeah, sorry.
So this is what I would say. Scientology loves black and white thinking. It's either all this or it's all that. It's either all good or it's all bad, right? Okay. And you just, and with things like this, it's like the conversation is not really healthy unless it has nuances, because nothing to do with human experiences is all black, all white, or is one way or the other, right? And similarly with psychiatry, because yeah, I would agree completely that we don't want just systematic drugging of children. We don't want kids on medication if they don't need it. I think everyone can agree with that. Certainly there was a time period in the 90s where medicating children was quite prolific in schools across America. And so yeah, there is, so it's like, to a degree, so you could say some of the work that CCHR has done to hold the industry accountable is good work. That doesn't make CCHR all good, right? And so, and the nuance to that is that they want to eradicate this mental health system. However, they don't have a solution for it. So it's very one-sided to just completely, like, for them to just completely attack a system but have no solution for it. Like, what are we going to do with people who are mentally ill, who do need inpatient care? Like, there's a whole spectrum of mental health issues that psychiatry deals with that Scientology doesn't have a solution for. In fact, they have no interest in people with mental illness. They are only interested in helping the able become more able.
Yeah.
So,
true, yeah.
So I don't want to make like the psychiatric industry out to be like there's some kind of heroic, it's an industry. It has to be regulated. And where there are things that violate human rights, then yeah, that should be, corrected and exposed. And there is some good work that Scientology has done, very notably in Australia, which was the work of CCHR when Jan Eastgate was the president of CCHR in Australia through the 1980s. And my mother was involved in this movement at the time as well, in researching and eventually getting shut down a hospital in particular that was doing deep sleep therapy, which was basically drugging people to sleep and then for days, weeks on end, keeping them in an unconscious state. And people died. So that's why I don't want to like blanket the conversation. We wanted to have a nuanced conversation to talk about like what are some of the issues here. There is some good that Scientology does in holding the industry accountable. However, they're not forthcoming with solutions, and also there is a lot of good that the psychiatric industry does as well.
Yeah. And going back to the Jan Eastgate thing, I was going to show a video. It's quite an old one, but for people that don't know, I actually didn't know about that, Miriam. I didn't know about that deep sleep thing. And if they want to be seen as doing good, then I mean, were they on the TV about it and everything, or because they don't really have a healthy relationship with the media, do they? They don't really seem to like the media.
So they were able to bring a government inquiry into the deep sleep therapy that was going on in Chelmsford. The way they were able to bring that about, well, because basically they kept calling for the inquiry and they were able to get patients' testimony, but what they weren't able to get is actual evidence. Basically, they were told by the government officials, if you want an inquiry, we need some evidence to be able to do it.
Right.
So the Scientologist went undercover into the hospital, obtained the files, brought them back out. Yeah. And
where's your evidence? How did you get it? Jesus.
Right. So then that was the question. So they got the inquiry kicked off. I think it was 1988. However, the psychiatrists weren't very happy with it. And by the way, this friction between psychiatry and CCHR was going on for a number of years. Jan Eastgate actually worked on this project for like 14 years. As I said, my mother was involved in it for several years. My mother actually took her first child, my older half-brother, when he was 13 years old. She took him into one of these hospitals because she used to go in undercover to do like research. And she actually lost him. Like they moved on to another room. She forgot about him, and he was locked into the ward with mentally insane people.
Oh my
Um,
god.
Wow.
yeah,
That
he
is
had to wait.
terrifying.
He said it was terrifying, and he had to wait
Yeah.
until she realized, like, oh, my child is back there, and he had to wait. He was locked in there, and he had to wait until she made her way back to him. So, and that was in Sydney. Yeah, Chelmsford Hospital is in Sydney, and I don't know. Like, I'm sure she went into that hospital. I don't know which one it was exactly, but he when he was telling me about it, it sounded like she was going undercover frequently in different hospitals, psychiatric hospitals.
Right.
All that's to
Wow.
say is through the 80s, there was, particularly this like sort of locked horns situation, culminating in 1988, where they were able to bring that inquiry. But then the psychiatrists were like, well, hang on, if you have those files as evidence, how was that obtained? That was illegally obtained. And then what Scientology did is they just whisked a bunch of those Scientologists up and just took them over to the US. So that in this
Wow.
inquiry, they couldn't question these people. One of the people that went to the US at that time in 1988 was Jan Eastgate. She was awarded the Freedom Medal of whatever, a Freedom Medal. I don't know which one. I know. Anyways, and then she was promoted to CCHR International.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't know if people know about what happened as well. I thought she fled to the US due to charges. So I'm just going to play a video that's a little bit old, and it kind of
So the charges that you're talking about is the obstruction of justice. Those charges were not brought against Jan Eastgate until 2011.
Okay, there was
We're talking about.
or I don't know. Let's see.
Okay.
I'll put it on anyway and see what it says because I can't
Okay.
remember, or I haven't uploaded it. Oh, for God's sake!
By the way, one of the psychiatrists, I think he was the head of this hospital, in 1985, he committed suicide. His suicide note said, "The Scientologists have won," by the way.
Wow.
Right? Wow! Oh my
Yeah.
gosh!
So it
I
gives you
wanted
some
to
insight into the history of that battle between Scientology, CCHR. Jan Eastgate, specifically in Australia, was leading that. And she was being directed by the Office of Special Affairs. So the Office of Special Affairs International in the US, so based in Los Angeles, runs all the CCHR. So OSA, Office of Special Affairs, is the boss of CCHR.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say
think-
too, at that time in the 1980s, mental health facilities weren't called mental health facilities, and they were asylums. Like it was a very different era than what we have as mental health today, and I just think that's noteworthy. Scientology really had a great win with
Chelmsford.
Thank you.
Chelmsford.
Yeah, I know of that case, and it was very, very public in Australia at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
wouldn't have been there. Yeah.
And this anti-psychiatry campaign was very popular. This is sort of was like kicking off. Well, it was becoming big in the 70s and then into the 80s, right? And that's where my mother, how my mother got into Scientology was through this psychiatry angle, because her first husband, they had gotten into domestics, and he grabbed her and he, took her in his car to one of these institutions and tried to have her committed involuntarily. The clerk, who was the admitting person, refused to take her. And so she then found out later on that the clerk, his husband was a Scientologist or whatever. And Scientology had a massive campaign against psychiatry, and that was what she connected to. And it was all about what you saw there, like human rights, the right to not be committed, the right to, all these things. And that's what she connected to. Yeah.
Yeah. I understand that, and they do say that over and over again about people being committed against their will and things. So I researched into, and the electric shock treatment, stuff like that. I did a lot of research into it, trying to find out, I didn't think electric shock was still going on. And it is, but it's in very, very rare cases where with maybe schizophrenia, with maybe very, how to say it properly, like say, someone who's autistic that's non-verbal and very violent, and other mental health issues and stuff, where it is the last resort. And I believe that they're put under anesthetic, they're put to sleep, and it happened, they do the actual shock treatment while they're asleep, I've heard. I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's very different to what they're showing in the exhibition, which is the old,
Right.
like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest kind of stuff,
Yeah.
Clamp
Gotcha.
down on
I
this,
gotcha.
put this in your, stick in your mouth and the things, and it's,
Yeah.
it's very different to that now, like you say, it's been refined. So
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
woman I knew that had it was actually a medical doctor herself. Like,
Yeah.
she was no silly Billy. Not that you're silly, but, she knew what she was doing was an extreme measure for an extreme psychological position that she found herself in. But I was shocked.
Yes.
I was really shocked when she told me about it, because I had no idea that it still can be done.
Yeah. And
So
mythology
the,
is kind of the same as well. Oh, sorry. You go.
So the imagery, particularly in the industry of death, but a lot of CCHR's imagery in the marketing stuff they put out, it's actually intentionally supposed to be jarring and just horrifying. That was intended by Hubbard for it to like shock a person. And that's noteworthy, because like I feel like one thing we could take away from that is, when we want to get the word out about Scientology, if there is a way that we could make it just as jarring and shocking visually to people, we could, maybe make some headway. Yeah.
Yeah, reverse engineer it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think as well with the involuntary thing, that's also very, very rare as well, I believe. I don't know. But I did read about a case where CCHR helped a guy out in Scotland who was taken in involuntary, and they got him out and they tried to press charges. I think he unalived himself, but I believe they tried to get justice for him. So yeah, they do some good stuff, as they do with a few of their front groups, but the percentage wise of what they do and the harm they do is,
Exactly.
it's like 2% good and 98% bad. I don't know, in my opinion.
Here's the thing as well, is like a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down, right? You want someone to swallow something that's like bitter and awful, we'll put some sugar with it, put some syrup with it. And that's pretty much what Scientology is. It's like, if they can combine that, because it is actually really difficult for people to like that conflict, that internal conflict of like, it should be all bad or all good, but when something's combined, it's so difficult. Like, there's something in the human like psyche that it's like, it's really hard for us to confront that. One of the things that Hubbard said is that man's confront of evil is very, very low. It's one of the most difficult things for men, like as in the human race, to confront. And he used that to his advantage. So it's actually really uncomfortable for us to accept that something is harmful, especially when we believe it has some merit to it. Yeah, we want it to be either all good or all bad.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know. I have to investigate everything and see all different angles from it. So I can't do that whole black and white thing. It would just be, I don't know, but I'm weird. So I was going to do this video on.
We do it with people and relationships. Well, I was just going to say, we do that with people and relationships as well. Like, we never want to believe that someone we trust is doing us harm, Yeah,
so, true.
Yeah, it's similar.
Yeah. All right, I'll put this thing on anyway. I can't even remember what it was. I think I did it with like AI, and I wrote out a thing about history and stuff, and then it's got about Janice Gate, I think, at the end. So I'll just put it on.
Yeah.
The Citizens Commission on Human Rights, CCHR, a mental health watchdog organization founded in 1969. The commission was started by a Hungarian doctor named Thomas Szosz, author of a 1960 book called The Myth of Mental Illness, a virulent critic of psychiatry. Shaw spent his career arguing that mental illness was nothing more than a means of ostracizing outliers, and that treating it amounted to a kind of abuse. In his name, CCHR has spent 50 years lobbying against psychiatry, by way of investigating and exposing human rights violations in the field of mental health. Since 1969, the organization claims to have been involved in passing more than 180 legal reforms in the psychiatry industry.
I spoke with Dr. Nada Stotland, the APA's current president, about the impact on psychiatry and the association.
It's a matter of concern. While we do have data showing that people increasingly believe in the validity of psychiatric disorders and increasingly believe they're treatable, still when a movie star jumps around on a couch and tells people that psychiatry is bad, we worry about the patients we're already treating who are watching. We worry about the people out there who are suffering from psychiatric illnesses and will be scared away from effective treatment.
Protecting the public from lethal psychiatric practices and defending the rights of its victims is the Citizens Commission on Human Rights.
Jan Eastgate has been charged for a second time in Sydney today. Last year, Ms Eastgate was charged with perverting the course of justice in relation to allegations she coached an 11-year-old girl to lie to police and community services about the sexual abuse she suffered at the hands of her Scientologist stepfather. Today, she was charged with another offence relating to perverting the course of justice. Ms Eastgate is the international president of the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, an organisation founded by the Church of Scientology. She was awarded the Church's Freedom Medal for promoting human rights in 1988.
There's no other medical specialty I know of that has its own particular dedicated hate group. And there's no other medical specialty in which people are already stigmatized and afraid as much as they are of psychiatry. So it's a very unfortunate conjunction of those two things.
The insane and so forth, somebody else can have them. They've already failed.
Wow.
They've already failed. Yes. It's gross. Yeah, that wasn't my video. I kind of chopped it and stuff, and I'm so sorry for the quality. I'm seeing it on my computer screen, and it's so fuzzy and old. I do everything on my phone, so on my phone it's all compacted down, and it doesn't look as bad. So, but yeah, I just thought that was important to put out there.
That wasn't too bad.
There was the opening was Danny Masterson, and there was somebody else that wasn't in that video, the Jan Eastgate. And you said you were there, Miriam. Did you want to share about that, or?
Well, and there might have been a couple of openings, but the CCHR building that's on Sunset in Hollywood, Los Angeles, in 2001, I believe it was me and a bunch of kids. We were on the decks, which is basically like this kind of like punishment program. It's if you're trying to leave the C organization, and basically you're getting interrogations, and you're also doing manual labor. So while you're waiting to be like allowed to leave. And I was on that off and on for a period of about 2 years, from like the end of 2000 to nearly 2002. And anyways, at that time, we were on the roof of that building tarring the roof for the insulation. And so we did that for a couple weeks, and that was leading up right up to the opening. As I said, there may have been a later opening with the Industry of Death Museum or specifically, but this is the CCHR building. It's the same building. We worked up to basically when they let everybody in. So we did like the setup and that sort of thing. And then we came back and did the cleanup after this whatever party, and all the special guests had arrived and whatever. And yeah, we would walk from, where the blue buildings are in Los Angeles we'd walk from there all along Sunset, just us bunch of kids, to the building. We would work on it, and then we'd walk back. So we'd work there all day. Yeah, there was a 7-Eleven nearby. We'd get a sandwich from the 7-Eleven for lunch, but we would be there all day, and then we would walk back at nighttime. And
you were a teenager at that time.
Yeah, I was 16 at the time. Yeah.
And you're on a roof.
On the roof, tarring the roof.
My God.
I don't know, because, that's how they used to do it then. I don't know if people still do that, but I've also done that work on top of the blue buildings as well, tarring the roof. So it's like a bucket of tar, and then you kind of have like a broom type of thing, and you're just like dipping it and just like rubbing it.
Not right on the top of all those the big high one on the top of that one.
No, there's a portion of it that I was on, which is near what's called the VRU, which is like that fenced area I've seen a bunch of footage of it, but there's a lower portion of the building.
Yeah, there's quite.
That's
a few
like
buildings,
one
so-
floor up. Yeah, that's the part
Yeah.
that I was working on.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, so it's like ironic, like, Citizens Commission for Human Rights. Like I didn't even have a right to an education.
Yeah.
And I
Exactly,
should
the
have been in
hypocrisy
school.
there.
Yeah, I should have been
yeah.
in school, and I'm like tarring a roof because they wouldn't let me leave. And by the way, I had already escaped, and then an LAPD had picked me up. They were interrogating me. I was in handcuffs. It was a whole ordeal. It went for a few hours. Then they didn't know where to place me, so they put me into a temporary foster home overnight. And then Scientology, because they were looking for me the next day, they put out a missing persons report. And then that's how they were able to find me. They said I had been missing for 9 days, Scientology had said.
That is shocking.
Yeah, the
and-
missing persons report is from January 2001. It's in the LAPD system still today.
Wow.
Yeah, right. And it's
Yeah.
crazy how, people never know 100%. Well, you can't really prove 100%. Or actually, I suppose you can, whether LAPD are working with Scientology. And it's like, if they were informed about cults, which I'm sure they are, there must be. It's California. There's like thousands of cults in California. That they would.
Well,
take
here's the
into
thing.
account that it's Scientology.
So it's human trafficking, and the laws
Yeah.
of human trafficking in the year 2000, it became law across federal law in the U.S. That of human trafficking. And here I was, a 16-year-old kid in 2001, and LAPD should have known better.
Yeah.
So then I get brought back to Scientology in those blue buildings, and they kept us down in the basement. There's an area called Rat's Alley, which is basically below the buildings, and there's like all this piping and stuff. It's like where they have like all the hot water, the water systems running through and that. But there'd be like rats and cockroaches and like really big ones that like fly at you, the palmetto bugs. So they would have us down there for like a few hours a day. Like it's hot and sweaty down there doing our ethics program. So you're basically examining how much of a piece of shit of a person you are.
Fuck.
And then, so you do that for a few hours a day. And then you were also doing like the manual labor and stuff. And I was being held there against my will because I wanted to leave.
Like, Jesus, yeah. Psychological torture as well,
So all those things like that they listed off apart from the drugging, it's like confinement, I didn't have any rights, all those, like that was my literal experience. Just even that snapshot of time. Yeah.
It's actually horrific to hear you tell that, Miriam. I don't know that part of your story. And I've had a 16-year-old once upon a time, and it's just horrendous that young people and yourself were treated and are being treated in this fashion. That's why we must talk about it.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing, Miriam. You're very brave for sort of, putting it out there and being videoed, saying it. And I really appreciate you sharing that. It's just hearing someone that's like actually been through it, talking about it is just fucking heartbreaking,
So then it gets slightly worse because then I won't stay on it too long, but
that's okay.
Basically at that stage I was like, okay, I'm finally like leaving. They're going to let me out. They didn't let me out basically. And I was still kept there for like nearly a full year. But at one stage my mother came and visited me because she's at the international base in Hemet, California. That's where she still is today. And she came down to visit me in LA. And anyways, long story short, we talked about the sexual assaults that I had experienced by my father. And so I said, well, like something has to be done about it. Like he can't just get away with it. Like there has to be some justice. And And I wrote a letter to David Miscavige, basically demanding that there would be some justice for what had happened, for what had been done to me. What they did instead was they then sent me overseas and placed me with my father in England.
Yeah, yeah. I remember you saying about that before. Like what the actual like.
And then the psychological, like, I was started to go crazy.
Yeah.
And
I'm
then
not surprised, mate. Yeah. Jesus
and then
Christ.
and then in England, and this is at St. Hill, the St. Hill Castle, like where they were protesting today, our time earlier today. That's where I was. And then I was placed on the RPF there, which was further imprisonment. And it's basically my situation just got worse and worse and worse. And this is human trafficking.
Yeah.
But you were asking for justice and then getting punished.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's what I was. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just unbelievable. Yeah. I'm just sorry. I'm
There's
a bit shocked, you know, far out. Like it's just awful. I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's why we're doing this, you know. It's just
there's a story that I think we're going to get into tonight, which is about somebody who was in Scientology in Brisbane, and I can relate a lot to that experience because basically, anyways, what I want to say is that the Scientology practices because when I was on the RPF, they were doing these very invasive interrogations on me, and it pushed me to a really, really dark place that, like, I didn't think I was going to come out of. Like, that's what I'm trying to say is, like, Scientology can make you insane, and it can make you want to take away your own life. And that was what my experience was with it as a kid. And over time, it got worse and worse and worse. Yeah.
That's what I mean by psychological torture. It's just absolutely disgusting. And trigger warning. I should have put a trigger warning on the title. So I'll show the Brisbane video now, shall I? And doing further investigations after hearing about this story. Miriam, you told me about this story last week, and I hadn't heard of it. It's still a bit of an old story, but it doesn't matter, you know. Unfortunately, it seems to be the last sort of 7 to 8 years, things like this aren't being exposed in Australian media. I don't know if they've been threatened or paid off or whatever. I don't know what's going on. But you can only really find old stories. You can find like things, they've opened a new building or whatever, but there's these stories, and you know, it's still going on. We know that from people that have left and things. But it's just not.
I think they're tying them up with like contracts and arbitration agreements and all this kind of thing. So I think
most probably. Okay, so I'm going to show this video. Yeah, I don't know. This video is about a guy who was going to the Brisbane org, I believe, in Australia. So trigger warning. And I'll tell you about my research afterwards, I guess. Okay, so here we go.
I just feel my brother's life has been taken away for a mere sum of $25,000. My brother was a beautiful, gentle, kind person.
30-year-old Edward McBride electrocuted himself at a substation near Brisbane in February 2007. The Queensland coroner requested the Church of Scientology hand over its files, as Edward had been doing intensive Scientology courses before taking his life.
But despite these requests, the files were never ever handed over. Police subsequently discovered that the file they wanted, my late brother's file, had been shipped by the Church of Scientology to the United States.
When Edward McBride died, Scientology didn't hide his files. They sent them to Sydney, then on to the United States. Still, they will not show them to the coroner.
There's something in those files that maybe something, maybe nothing, but hey, if there's nothing in there, why not just shed some light, you know, just bring it to the table.
It raises questions about techniques being used, methodologies being used by a cult like this to put people in a position which is untenable.
2 days prior to his death, the bombardment of 19 telephone calls and SMSs from the Scientology. I believe he was just cornered, had nowhere to run.
When he failed to appear for more intense and expensive Scientology auditing, the pressure was put on.
Very demanding. You must come in now. My job's on the line here. Just paid $25,000 for 3 advanced courses with Scientology.
Where did he get the money for that?
He had $5,000 of his own money, but actually took out a bank loan of $20,000.
Scientology has not been accused, let alone convicted of any wrongdoing in relation to what happened to your brother. We have to make that clear.
Yes, yep, fully understand. They just, it's not rocket science.
It's been suggested these matters are so serious they should be investigated by the police. But what if the evidence has been destroyed or shipped offshore, like the files of Edward McBride? The ex-Scientologists making the claims say that almost certainly has already happened.
Yeah, so you can see what you were. That was really nice of you to lead into that for me, Miriam. The way that they do, you're hounded, you're punished, and they're saying that psychiatry is evil. Well, I'm sorry, but if that's their solution, then it's just, like you said at the beginning, Ree. It's very hypocritical to say the least.
Yeah.
And that's when we were protesting there last month. That we were if you've got to think about as well, that's just one case of many. I've actually got quite a few names of other people that have unalived themselves due to the torture. I'll do a short about it. I think I'll do a in memory of with all the names, because I think it's important to see the sheer numbers. And I've only got ones from the 90s, and I'm sure there's more. Right. And then you've got things like what happened to Lisa McPherson. You've got Ellie Perkins, Whitney Mills, all have been failed. Yeah, have been failed and needed possible psychiatric help. Not to be tortured.
Well, then there's all the ones that are not reported as suicide, but reported as accident or whatever. So when I read this story, because I actually read the actual inquiry that was done, the coroner's inquiry. Okay. And what I understood from the Scientology experience is that so he had been doing he had been receiving the Scientology counseling, which they call auditing, this processing, which that in itself, if anyone's read the Anderson report, that can give you a clue into basically it's psychologically damaging. And so you can be taken to a point of basically a trauma, like a trigger. Basically you can get stuck in your own trauma, and they don't have a tool, because they're not mental health professionals. They're just this man just made up a whole bunch of shit, and it's very destructive. And so what happens is at the end of each session, you go to what's called an examiner. Basically they're sitting in a room, you go in, it kind of looks like an interview room, it's just a little room. Sit down, you hold the cans on the e-meter, and your needle has to float. And then basically you get a pass and okay, bye. That means that whatever process took place, it was successful. But if your needle doesn't float, then they have to get you back in session within, I think it's 24 hours. And what happens is a red tag gets placed on your folder. So that indicates they have to, per Hubbard's writing, they have to get you back into session and try and fix whatever the thing is that they fucked up, because whatever. And the clue to that was that he received, it was 19 points of contact between text messages and phone calls, voicemail messages left. Within a couple of days, he had his last session with the auditor. And then over the period of a couple of days, 24 hours, he was bombarded with, you have to come. The messages were you have to come in, you have to finish your cycle, you have to finish the process, da-da-da-da-da. So that makes me understand that that's what that was. He obviously doesn't come back. And within a couple of days of that last session, he commits suicide. So, yeah.
And the emotional
just
blackmail
goes to
saying, I'm
show
going to
you-
lose my job, like saying that as well, you know, like trying everything to get him
Oh, right.
harassment. Yeah.
Right. And so that is true, because so the auditor, if they don't get this person back into this session within this time frame, they will get punished for that.
Wow.
They also lose, because you know how everything is based on statistics. They actually lose all of the auditing hours that they have achieved for that week. So every day they will take people into these like sessions. They accumulate hours over the week, and that's their statistics. But if they get a red tag and they don't do the correction, they lose all of their statistics for that week, which means they get into a lot of trouble. So there's all this pressure. So you understand why he got 19 methods of contact there. And then what they did is after his death, in the clip it said they sent it to Sydney. Sydney sent it over internationally. And that's a technique that Scientology in Australia has done a number of times. I have other stories about that, moving documents around out of the state or out of the country. So that's definitely a known technique.
It reminded me, like where you said they moved people out of the country, you know?
Yes.
They just move it, and they move documents out of the country. They just move it out of the country, and then it can't be dealt with, you know?
Yeah.
It's just disgusting. It's so much, so deceitful, and drives me insane.
Even the money factor, I want to mention that a young man who's got $5,000 to take a $20,000 loan is enormous. That sort of tells me that he socioeconomically couldn't afford what was going on. He's under incredible pressure, and the weight of not being able to pay that back when you're already in such distress, the unaliving is exacerbated with factors that Scientology has actually created.
Yeah.
The other history as well is he had been in the army. He was a military man. I can't remember if it was the army or like a special, whatever military thing. But, anyways, he was in the military. He experienced bullying. Left the military, but he was waiting on a result of like, I don't know, it's called like where you get released from the military. I'm not sure that he was actually, other than still being on paper with the military, I didn't see anything to indicate that he was working or had a job. So you do have that financial pressure, and I think that also if after 2 years, so he got the loan he paid the $25,000, and he was a Scientologist for 2 years. I think, you know, if you weren't getting the results that you wanted to get,
and
ultimately.
Yeah, there's many other cases. There's another example. There was a guy from, I can't remember, I think his name was Robert Buchanan, I think. And he was from Scotland, and he was a landscaper, and he went over to Germany to do some work over there, and he got caught up in Scientology, and he got into so much debt, and his mother was talking about how he was saying that he was immortal, and she was like, you know, I don't know where this came from. He wasn't brought up like that. He was brought up like Catholic or whatever. And he unalived himself, and he had all these, like, when they found him, you know, in his apartment or whatever, there was all this Scientology stuff around him, all of these like bills, credit card debts and stuff like that, you know. And it was just absolutely heartbreaking. It seems to happen quite frequently. In fact, I think the last process I did at Perth org, I was with, I think he was in the chat earlier, a gentleman named Greg, and he got involved in the Perth Scientology back in the 80s. And I think he only went there for a few months, and he ended up doing the Purif straight away, and they were trying to get him to become staff, and he took out like a $6,000 loan for these courses and stuff. Luckily, he pulled out, and I think he did legal action and got his money back, got it reversed or something like that, you know. So he was very lucky, but it is definitely one of their tactics, you know. I mean, I would never get a loan out for something like that. So it just shows, nobody would think of getting a loan out for that. It just shows their hard selling.
Manipulation.
you know,
Massive manipulation. Yeah.
yeah. And I think actually I think the thing, I'm trying to remember what he said, but what Greg was the light bulb moment for him is he overheard the staff saying, oh, just sell them a course. It doesn't matter if they don't need it. Just sell it to them. And he heard them say that. So thank God he did, you know, because he got out before it got any worse. But yeah, it's just absolutely shocking. Yeah. And I can't remember what else I was going to do. I've got a clip of Tom Cruise, if anyone wants to see that. I think everyone's seen Tom Cruise. That's what I was going to get into. I was going to get into what is actually, for people that are born into Scientology, what they are taught about psychiatry and the fear that's instilled in them. I mean, so when I went to the event, you know, we were given a goodie bag with all these DVDs. This is one of the DVDs. Fear. You know, the age of fear, psychiatry's reign of terror, you know, and these big fists and children's hands. And I know some can't see it very well. In fact, I might actually start doing some videos actually watching these DVDs and going through it, if anyone wants to do that with me, just to like dissect it and debunk it, because it's like they make it look so horrendous. Like in the exhibition, there was people, it was like they were blaming the Holocaust on psychiatry, and there was videos of people's skulls being drilled and all sorts of stuff, you know. And they were like, there was people taking their kids in there. Like I saw a mother sitting with her little boy watching this, and I'm like, very loudly behind her said, well, I don't think this is suitable for kids. So I had to say something, you know. And then because I was in disguise as Mel with my little short wig, which Mad Drop Bear loves. And yeah,
Miriam,
good half an hour. Yeah.
Miriam, were you exposed to that kind of propaganda, that film footage, etc., that is being spoken about?
Absolutely. Yeah, we all were. So that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And we had this fear of psychiatry, and actually any kind of what was called like any other practice. So any kind of therapy, but yeah, particularly psychiatry, we were terrified of, and that comes back to Hubbard's writings. And beyond that, so you had, you know, these generations of children growing up with this fear of psychiatry, and of course they're not going to then access any real mental health for themselves. And we've seen a lot of suicides. We've seen a lot of kids, take their own lives, because then you just don't have, you know what I mean? Like you just don't have a method of help. You don't, how can you get any relief? And in Scientology, it's basically all of it is just like labeling. You're just like constantly labeled. I mean, the amount of labels that I had as a child, like I was a degraded being, I was out ethics, I was counter intention, I was off purpose, I was like on and on and on. I was down stat, I was out ethics. Like it just, you know, and everything told me that I was bad. Everything around me told me that I was bad. So it's like, if you're struggling with some kind of trauma, especially on top of that, and you don't have a way to navigate through it, it's incredibly destructive. And, you know, and like you're already dealing with this reduction in like your identity, you know, your sense of self, all these other things. And like the processes in Scientology, they disconnect you from your own feelings. Like, so you can imagine like all these compounding factors. And on top of that, like, how do you find your way out of that? And I remember it was, you know, it took me many years to leave Scientology. And after I did, I was really struggling with my past trauma. And on the advice of somebody else, I dragged myself to a therapy session. And like, I was like sweating in, like, just to be there was physically uncomfortable for me. Like, yeah. I was like, my palms were sweaty. Like I was shaking inside. I was like fully expecting, and this is going to sound so crazy, but like, as I'm talking, because I'm talking about my abuse, and you just were never allowed to talk about that. Like you couldn't talk about anything negatively. Right. And
Yeah.
so I'm just fully expecting like these Sea Org members to just like come through the walls. Like, it was like I was having visions
Or to be like
in my
strapped to
first
a
therapy.
bed. Yeah, like
Yeah, my
strapped to one of
first
those
therapy
beds or
session.
something. You know, the
Yeah, like
bed with the straps on them and stuff. Like, I can imagine.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
Oh yeah, like
Yeah.
everything. Yeah. So it was like it definitely the fear situation was there. And also, like in the 90s, parents brought their kids into Scientology because of that, because they didn't want their children to be drugged in public schools and they wanted a better solution for them. So there was, that marketing can bring people into Scientology. It can keep people into Scientology because you can't reach for, external help. And it can, it can really damage people.
Absolutely. And then you've got the maternal deprivation as well from like no parenting, nowhere to go, literally nowhere to go. You can't go to turn to your parents. You can't what's it called? Be nattering with people, talking to other people. You're like completely on your own. And then just being like, it's just being tortured. It is it's insane.
It's psychological torture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's the opposite. Everything I've always said, like, everything Hubbard sort of seems to want to achieve is actually the opposite. He talks about suppressive people on the outside when the Scientologists are the ones that are being suppressed, like, and compounded trauma upon trauma upon trauma. And it is just, I honestly don't have words for it. Mad Drop Bears put a question twice, and you did touch on it. You said it's from the teachings of LRH. What do you feel was LRH's big hang up over psychology and the professionals who administer it?
Well, all I know is that when he came out with Dianetics, which was the modern science on mental health, he thought it was going to really blow up with the mental health industry. Like, he thought he was going to be in with the American Medical Association and the American Psychiatric Association. And in fact, they ridiculed and like laughed at him, and he was incredibly embarrassed. And and I think it came from that, because like a narcissist, the worst thing you can do to a narcissist is like embarrass them, right? And so he just declared war on them, basically.
Yeah. But what arrogance have you got to think that people are going to believe this book that you've written, which is complete fiction, with no evidence to back it up?
But he was omnipotent. He was like he had a god-like complex that he was covering up his crap with, and that war against psychiatry when they didn't accept his book as the new mental health dialect, he went to war.
Yeah, I think as well. So he's asking, was it purely vengeance? But didn't he get, he actually reached out for help. There was one point with his first wife, what was it? Sarah Northrup, I think it was, wasn't it? Or Sarah? She actually tried to get him assessed for schizophrenia. And it might have been when he was getting discharged from the Navy or whatever. He actually reached out for help, and they rejected him or something. So I think there's that as well. So he's just had like a negative experience with psychiatry, but geez, man, like
no. So I think after the Navy and that, I think he was on medication. He was popping pinks and blues or whatever, and so I think he did have some treatment. But he did not create Dianetics at that time. He created Dianetics later. So it was after, as far as I understand, after the release of this book. And if you think about it, in a way, they're almost like his competition, right? His opposition. Because what other industry would be in direct opposition to what he was coming out with and what he wanted to do? So in that sense, not just vengeance, but that in terms of like a sales and marketing situation, I think that he, they would be his competition. They would be also the, the people that would be trying to regulate what he was trying to do. Yeah.
I just want to mention something, backtracking a tiny bit, Miriam. When you said before, you named approximately 6 different names that you were labelled as a
Right.
child, and I know what those names mean because I'm an adult. But I was thinking of the child me, and I would have
Mm-hmm.
no fucking clue what you're talking about, and no
Right.
child should know what those, like, even the term our ethics, let alone a degraded being. What
Yeah.
child needs to hear any information like that? Like, it's we must really pick apart why this isn't okay for the children, because it's, we know it's horrifically damaging, but in a normal, and well, I didn't have a normal childhood, but I wasn't raised with this bullshit, and
Mm-hmm.
and a child should know none of those words that you were labeled as.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was other things like, if someone was being banky, that meant that you were like expressing emotions, like you were upset with something. Yeah, there was labels, and there was a whole other language as well. And like things like, oh, you're a potential trouble source, or you're being suppressive, or you're committing overt acts, or you're like, yeah. So, everything was sort of, I remember being very aware my entire childhood that I was a bad person. And I knew that. And that's because I was always getting into trouble, and I was always having to do these like different, what they called conditions, or writing up my transgressions, or being interrogated, or being put in a room, being isolated to write up all the bad things that I had done. Yeah.
A child wouldn't even know what a transgression was. Like, that's an adult word. Like, and it is so crazy making.
I'm sure they were speaking to children like they were adults, though, weren't they? And drilling these words into you every day. So it would probably be a normal word for you, You're
right,
not
because
watching all the cartoons on telly and everything, are you? You're learning all this shit instead,
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So the word wasn't transgression. That's just a word that I'm using. The word was overt. So you committed an overt act, or you had a missed withhold. So that means you did something bad. Someone almost saw what you did, or you thought they might have seen you, and then you felt bad about it. So it's anything that you would feel embarrassed about is what you need to divulge, and you need to write it all out. And there was a specific format, like time, place, form, and event is how you had to write out the bad deed. So yeah.
What a childhood.
The other thing was reporting on each other. So writing knowledge reports on each other, and that was going on. And being put on the e-meter so that they could check if your needle was dirty. If you had a dirty needle, then that means you need to go write up all the bad things that you did. Yeah, and I was put in a punishment program, which was basically designed off the RPF. So it was like a children's RPF, and this was at the ranch, and I was 13 at the time, 12, 13, right around then, and and it was designed exactly off of the RPF. Except for like the program was shorter. Like on the RPF, you could be on there for years and years. This would take you maybe a couple months or something like that. But again, it's like writing up all your bad deeds, doing labor. So they were having us dig trenches. At the ranch. And it's like, so I was constantly being punished through my whole childhood. So it was pretty familiar with that.
Sorry, another question. So a dirty needle, that's just a non-floating needle, or is that one that's like really going like to the bad bit?
So you have like a dial. So can you ever see this? This is this is like something that would be kind of normal. And then, but a dirty needle is twitchy. It's like whatever, like that. Now, if you have something wild like that, that's a rock slam, and that indicates evil purposes. That means your intentions are evil. But a dirty needle can just be something that you're withholding. So it just kind of like, is kind of a little bit twitchy like that, a little bit like rough and jaggedy. So this is on a dial, and there's like a needle that goes back and forth, basically.
What's a theta bot? A theta bot.
A theta bot. God, I hope I'm going to get this right, but I think it's like almost like a tick. But there's a tick. That's also another needle movement, is a tick. Then there's falls and like a long fall, blow down, and there's all kinds of things.
God.
But theta bop. Oh no, a theta bop I think is when. No, we got to look at this up now. Theta bop.
I thought it was
I
going
actually
like
have
that.
a Scientology dictionary.
Yeah. Oh God.
No, I think that means when you're going in and out of your body. Oh no, E-meter. Okay. Theta bop. Oh, who bloody knows?
Yeah, I'm just going to answer sonic youth while you look that up. So it's Scientology is supposed to be the study of thought, isn't it? I think.
Okay, so theta bop, this is on some website, is a small or wide steady dance of the needle over a spread.
I think
the needle goes up and down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
I can't remember what else we were going to cover. There's so much. We could even do a part 2 of this. There's so much, but I might just I'm looking at doing a series about all the front groups, but more of a recording with visuals and stuff like that, just to explain them simply. I have been doing a lot of investigations into the volunteer ministers in Africa. If anyone wants to watch those, I've been sorting out my playlist, so I've got the UK stuff where they've taken my Narconon video down again, where I went undercover in Narconon. So I blurred out the lady's face in it because it was a privacy complaint. So they have to get the actual person whose face it is to make the complaint. So I went through the whole video, did all the blurring out, but I missed a tiny split second where her face is, but it's so fast and it's blurry. But I was away and I didn't check my emails, and they've taken it down again, and I don't think I copied it. So I'm just like, I did that in the UK one, and then I've got the Perth stuff. I must do a Melbourne folder thingy. But I've also got the African activism. So if anyone wants to see stuff about volunteer ministers in there, Jeff's been covering a drug-free world, which is amazing. Getting all those badges taken down. If anyone's seen that, check out Jeff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, PTS for Life. His channel, he does some amazing work. Him and his amazing wife. Should we go through questions?
Sounds like a great plan.
And if anyone, I usually do, and this is an open panel, like if anyone wants to join us as well, I'll just put the link in if anyone wants to come in and say good day or put their 2 cents in. They are more than welcome. I think I put it at the top there. We do that on a Saturday night, don't we, Ree? we like to do so. Yeah, we just want to be inclusive and everyone to sort of, it's Tee and Ree Connecting, and you're all about connecting, aren't you, Ree? And me too. After all these years of isolation and stuff, you need that connection,
Yeah.
So feel free to jump in, guys, if you want to. Just click on the link.
People don't heal in isolation, no matter what their trauma. It's not possible to heal in isolation.
I know, and that's what
finding a tribe that you feel comfortable with and people that you're safe with is really, really an important endeavor.
It's a very special thing, and
yeah.
That means they're watching your videos intensely. I hope so. So what do I have as questions? So Pinche Becky, I don't know if anyone saw. Also check out Pinche Becky's channel. I'll have to put these links in afterwards to people's channels. You went and sort of protested outside there as well. This was shortly after I did my protest, I think. A few weeks afterwards. But not many people showed up, so that is good. And I like this comment as well. Been feeling a little defeated with so much mess that's been going on. I've wanted to just walk away, and then I hear these stories and I'm reminded that there's work to be done. We appreciate you, Becky.
Thanks, Becky.
Yeah, it's been an absolute shit show, hasn't it, lately? I've done that one. I always forget to unstart them. Hang on. Because you guys aren't in Are you streaming to your channels as well, or
No.
No.
but you're in StreamYard? Oh, so you can't star stuff. Okay.
No.
Oh, now there's a couple of people have mentioned this, and I actually forgot about this until I think Mad Drop Bear put it, and then Maya, sorry. That I think LRH actually spent time with a guy, I think in his teens, and he was a little bit of a father figure to him, and he was I think they did LSD together, and he was a psych, and they spent a lot of time together. I've just deleted his comment by accident. Oh, I've just deleted hers as well. But do you know anything about that? About I can't remember the guy's name. I'll try and find the comment. I think
It's not coming to me, but
they're kind of ringing a bell a bit. I can't remember.
Yeah. What's
He's inhabited by an alien conscious. He taught LRH a lot about psychiatry.
Yeah, it was. God, no, I can't. The name's not going to come to me right now, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a vaguely. I remember it. Yeah, it's one of those things you got to look up again. Hey, James Steele, hello. Oh, hang on, sorry, I'm getting. I don't know whereabouts I am with the bloody comments. Hang on. Oh Christ, I don't know if I want to put that one. There you go, another question. I think because you were born in, I'm guessing. I don't know. Whoops.
Oh, okay. What was the thing that kept you in Scientology? Because I didn't have a choice. I was born into it. Yeah. So for a long time, I was, because I was a kid, of course. Then I left the C organization. Like I left working for the church at 17, but I remained in Scientology again initially because I was placed into a Scientology home and I was dependent upon them for my survival. So that went on for some time. And then also the main thing that kept me in there for a bit longer was that because I was then attending like the Melbourne org, and I was actually in the volunteer ministers program as well. I went and did Cyclone Larry in far north Queensland. Anyways, okay. But so I was an active Scientologist, and I was wanting to be like a really good Scientologist because, as I said, I had been told my whole life that I was bad, and I wanted to redeem myself. I wanted to be recognized and acknowledged as a good person. So there is that where I wanted to be loved, and I hadn't experienced love, like, you know what I mean? And so there was that tied into it, like my self-worth was tied into it, and the need for validation, the need for recognition, the need to be valued, because you could only be valued if you were doing something for the cause. So I was determined to be a really good Scientologist to try and prove them, that I was worth something. So yeah, that kept me in for a while.
I could just imagine, if you're born into it, that's all you know, and you also seem to be conditioned to be afraid of the outside world. Like it's a big scary place full of SPs and these evil psychiatrists and stuff, and it's all done for a reason. It's a very sophisticated, well, not sophisticated, but very elaborate kind of. Every little corner is covered by brainwashing, by propaganda. It's just.
So the other thing was that as I was growing up in it, I was taught that anything good that happens in my life, or any talent that I have, or anything that was valuable about me, was because of Hubbard. Hubbard had given that to me, and so, or Scientology had given that to me. So as well, it's like. Tied to that was if I fell down, if I wasn't doing well, I needed Scientology, I needed Hubbard to like correct myself, because I didn't know how to do that on my own. I believed everything was tied to Scientology, so that took a while to work out. Yeah,
and that's very common with cults. That's what they do. It seems to be a running theme with cults. Mind control. I just wanted to say as well with Becky, absolutely. And I haven't heard the word plebs for ages, so thanks, James. James, you're a ray of sunshine, Becky, don't let the plebs grind you down. Absolutely. And that goes for everyone. You know, there's a lot of idiots out there. And yes, we won't put up with it in here. What are we doing as well? Hang on a minute. Sorry. Oh, I don't know why I did that one. Becky, are you saying, Becky, check your email? I think. I know I've got 6 emails that I need to answer. I just haven't had time. But yeah. I like this one, Mena. The theta box sounds like it wasn't related to the e-meter, right?
It sounds like a drink. It sounds like an alcoholic drink.
Like, I don't know, something a bit more energetic, but yeah. Susan King, good to see you. Thanks for being here. Have you heard if somebody in psychiatry supports the movement because you're helping them to? I'm not quite sure if I'm reading it properly.
I don't know what that means. I'm trying to figure out how to answer it. Have you heard if somebody in psychiatry supports the movement because you are helping them to helps the anti-Scientology movement? I'm not sure.
Yeah, can you elaborate on that, please, Susan?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm reading it wrongly, or I don't know. Oh, so I've just spotted Becky. I'm so sorry. Hang on a minute. We've got Becky in here. I'm such a knob. I didn't see you, darling.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Becky.
I just wanted to say hello to you guys. And
Hi.
I'm just so amazed by your guys' strength. It's really touching to hear everything that Miriam has gone through, and yet you're here. You're standing tall. You have defeated them just by living your best life.
Yeah.
Thank you. I do
And
appreciate that.
And it's something that's amazing, that's beautiful, and really for a lot of us that are never ends, that are trying to bring awareness, that are trying to help in any which way we can. And sometimes we do feel a little defeated, especially when we're being attacked and at least me, I feel like, is it really worth it? Is it really worth me going through this much heartache? And there's just been times where I want to just walk away, and then I hear a story and it's like, wait a minute, now fuck this shit. Nobody is going to keep me away. We're going to still continue. We're still going to continue to fight for what I know is right, for what I feel that is important. And for me, elderly abuse and child abuse have always been important. And, you know, just hearing your story kind of puts a little fire in us again, where it's like, no. We're not letting the simple behind the scenes stuff drag us down. We're going to continue to fight. I may not be on YouTube 24/7, but I can assure you that on a daily basis, I will bring up the abuses of Scientology somewhere in a conversation with someone.
I know you will. I know you will. You have a good heart, Becky, and I don't get why people are bullying you. And all I can say is just do your best to ignore them, because, you know, I don't look up narcissists and grey rock theory, and it works. I'm telling you, because more. So if you but you're a Latino, you know, you've got that fiery, you know, you're not going to take any shit. I get it. I've dated quite a few Latinos and been involved in the community in the UK. We have a lot of Spanish and Portuguese and Brazilian and all sorts, and I love it and love the food. And I'm still coming around your house for dinner one day. One day.
Come on down. I will cook for all three of you guys. So, Miriam, where are you? I'll cook for you. I have no problem cooking. But I just really wanted to. It's almost 4 a.m. here, and I should have been sleeping. And I saw. Well, now I know how you guys feel when you guys are in our time zone.
Yeah.
And but
Becky,
this was so worth it.
Thank you so much, Becky. And I just wanted to say thank you for everything that you're doing out there. Those blue buildings, that's where I grew up around. It's so emotionally impactful for me to see everything that the protesters are doing over there. It's absolutely incredible. And I never even could have dreamed that any of this would be possible. Also, of course, I'm sure you're absolutely aware that they're targeting people in your community. And and it's awful to see that, and especially they're targeting the families as well. And so you're protecting. There's a lot that you're doing there, and so just you're protecting
what
the
they're
future
doing
generation.
now. Yes, what they're doing now to target the Latino community is they're putting like I went into a website and they were I guess it was a quinceañera photographer. You're sweet, you're when you're coming out. Now to us, when someone has their quinceañera, their sweet 16, that means that they're leaving the childhood their child behind, and they're becoming young ladies. It doesn't necessarily mean that at 15 you're able to get married and do all this other stuff as an adult. It just means that you are now able to do. Yes, exactly. And so for them to think that a 5-year-old is an adult in a little body, and yet they're going out there and they're promoting this photographer that is a quinceañera photographer, that he knows damn well that in our community, we try to maintain, at least when I was growing up, like I couldn't put on makeup, I couldn't do any of that until my quinceañera, and it doesn't have to mean that you have a big party. So we can't start dating. We can't start putting on makeup. We can't start doing any of the grown-up things until
so it's really
we
like
turn
preserving
15.
that childhood
Yes.
time, which is the absolute opposite of what my experience was, and definitely what Scientology continues to do is to rob children of their childhood and to adulticize them early on, and to put this big responsibility on their shoulders of saving a world. So wow, that's incredible.
Well,
I didn't realize. Thank you for sharing that.
Part of the custom for a quinceañera is the first dance as an adult. They give you a doll, which represents your last doll, you living again your childhood. And in preparation for that, they take off your sneakers and they slip on your high heels. And so it's more than just a party and everybody. No, it's much more than that.
Almost like a ceremony, kind of
yes,
like a
I
think it's beautiful. I've seen it before. I've seen one of those parties.
And so for them to now be using the quinceañera, and it's sickening. That's not what our community believes in. We are very family oriented. I mean, as you guys might know, we have 2-3 generations living in the same home, not because we can't afford to go and live elsewhere, but because, now I take care of my mom to help me take care of my son. And so it's multi-generations, because we normally stick together if my mother could buy the house next door, or I can buy the house next door to my son, because now he has a child that, growing up, and we're going, it really is a community, family, it's really a family oriented community, and they're trying to destroy that from within.
Right. And Becky, what also happens then is they're able to get in 3 generations at one time. And Serge Dalmar speaks to that experience. Like, all of his family was in Scientology, his aunt, his parents, his sister, and he was, brought into it from a really young age. So it's like, it's that danger too, is that if they get their hooks into one family member, then then it just suddenly
the
it's
whole
the
lot
whole
go.
family.
Yeah.
And it's true. I came out because first I was watching what LAPD was doing. I saw it first through Streets, and seeing the corruption. LAPD has always been corrupt. This is nothing new. Seeing them out there. Then I heard Laura's story, and it was like, wait, because to me, Scientology was nothing but the Kukuluku, Tom Cruise jumping on a couch. So even though I grew up in LA and that building has always been there, I never really paid attention to it. It was just, a religion to the movie stars. And it wasn't that important. I heard Laura's story, then I heard, and I didn't know any of the aftermath and any of those stories. I had never watched it, but I heard Laura and I heard Serge's story, and that was enough for me to continue speaking out on it. As a matter of fact, I went out there to support the protesters and to inform the community of the abuses of Scientology, and I kind of stayed because it was so important. By then, that little fire had been sparked. So keep telling your story, because some of us need to be reminded why we are really here, and forget all the other extras that goes on in the background, all the extra noise. And you just reminded me.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, because that's really powerful. And it's so, I just want to say thank you for sharing that, because that's what I've been feeling these past couple of days. Because I had that moment recently after a few sort of rough interactions recently, and I was like, what the fuck am I fucking doing here? Like, what is actually important to me? Like, being triggered by some a-hole on the internet, like, no, that's not why I'm here.
Exactly.
So I was just like, okay, I'm going to completely tune out of what this person is doing, because he's just being, incredibly destructive, and I'll just say it, he's hurting my friends, and that's upsetting, and I'm not cool with that. And I have told him that directly. And I just was like, I just fucking snapped out of it. I'm like, what am I doing here? No. What's important to me is connecting with survivors, connecting us all through stories, through our shared stories, because we all have stories. And, chatting with Ree and Tee, and and I have these awesome relationships with like Nora and Serge and Laura, and particularly like someone like Serge, who is such a support person for me. We talk often. We have so much shared passion about topics, and that's really what it's about. It's about the community. It's about survivors holding hands across the whole world. What an exciting time. What an exciting movement. Like, we get to speak to you, Becky, today. You're in LA protesting over there. Like, we have people in our chat from all over the world. It's just an incredible, exciting time. And like, I'm really living for that right now. Yeah.
And you should. You should.
Well said. Yeah. We need the positivity to keep going, the momentum to keep going. Remember why we're here. Block out all the other bullshit and just do what we're doing.
And there are going to be people that want to bring you down. I mean, you guys might have seen the video where I went to City Hall
Yeah.
And I was
That's
so
very
that
disappointed, I
well
actually I really liked that person when they first came on the scene, and to see that, it was just really very
Well, those are
surprising.
that's the type of people that want to shut you down, and you're going to have that in every community. That's why I said, you know what, let me step back. I don't know if I can mentally continue this, and why am I doing this? And then here you pop up, and it's like, I just remembered. It's not
Yeah, well,
about the
that's what we
bullshit.
want to do. We want to remind people that why we're here. Me and Ree we try our best. I mean, I'm not qualified at all, but I can relate to a lot of people's trauma. But we want to advocate for people. We want to give people a platform to share their experiences. We want awareness, and we're doing stuff behind the scenes with
Yes.
the government and all sorts of stuff like that
Hmm.
going on, which we can't share at the moment. But we really we're not mucking around,
Well,
and
yeah, and
don't
again,
get
even
involved.
if I'm not on
Childish.
YouTube,
It's childish shit, and at the end of the day, um, there's different sides of the story, isn't there?
yes,
There's the true
yes.
story, the bullshit
Mm.
story. There's somewhere in between. Do you know what I mean? And nobody actually knows the full story of all these different people, what is actually going on behind closed doors, and how they see their experience. We all experience the world differently, and it's just I just wish people would stop judging and bickering and
And
fighting.
it's okay
Actually,
because no matter if I'm on YouTube or not, I still do what I gotta do. I mean, I don't go around telling people what I do to help. Some people aren't aware of who I'm talking to, and whatever it is that they confide in me, whether they confide in me when we're okay or they confided in me and then we're now angry, those are going to stay behind closed doors. Whatever it is that was confining me has to remain there.
yeah,
I'm still helping people behind the scenes,
yeah.
and that's why I never did this for prestige. I never did this to get money. I never did this for anything other than I have always felt very passionate about being someone who has suffered through childhood as um, and I think a lot of this is something I wanted to also bring up. A lot of the community that supports this movement is because of their own traumas, and
100%.
they hear it, and they might hear it in your story, maybe not to that extent, but you remember the fear, you remember that little child in you that just wanted someone to fucking protect you.
Yeah.
And now as an adult, we can be the one protecting. We can be the one to speak out. We are those voices that people have shut down. We are those voices. So I just want to thank you guys again. I'll let you guys continue. To all of you guys that are listening out there, you know what? Just remember why you actually started watching this anti-Scientology movement. It was
Yes.
because something resonated in there, and it's time for us to move on, move ahead, and continue doing what we're doing. Period. Dot. End of
Yes.
story.
Well
Thank you
said.
so
Again.
much, Becky. Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you. Thanks so
you guys
much.
have a great rest of your. Is it afternoon?
It's
Morning?
Nighttime.
it's 7 p.m. where I am, and it's 10 p.m. where Ree and Miriam are, because they're in a different
Yeah.
state. They're in a different time zone to me.
It's 4 a.m. here. I should get some shut eye, but probably not until you all finish because I am loving this stream. Thank you guys so much, and you guys have a wonderful evening.
You too. Besos.
Thank
Mwah.
you.
Thank you,
Gracias.
You have
Adios.
an awesome day.
Ciao.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Oh,
So something that
okay.
Becky reminded me of, it just at the tail end there, is this show that we were talking about the other night, Into the Fire, The Lost Daughter on Netflix. Well, I was driving yesterday and I was listening to, just playing some clips as I was driving along and listening to some sort of sound bites the mother had given. And one of the things she said, maybe I am all of the women that you abused, like that this perpetrator. Maybe I am all of the women that he abused. Maybe I am my daughter. I am the voice of my daughter. I am his worst nightmare. And I just thought it was so powerful. It was like,
Oh, yeah.
she had absorbed all of his victims. She was there to bring justice for the crimes that had been committed against them. And I thought that was really, really powerful. And something that Becky said there, it resonated with that of like, of being the voice of the abused children because they didn't have a voice. And that's something that we can do.
And I'm wondering if doing that and having a voice for others and sharing your own trauma is a way of healing your inner child. What do you reckon, Ree? Do you think?
Oh, I personally speaking as a trauma survivor myself, it's been very healing being in this community, not as a therapist. I'm here as a survivor. I just happen to have all that experience and wealth of knowledge, and I'm very grateful for that. But I am here as a survivor, and I'm connecting with women and men who are trauma survivors of childhood abuse themselves that are in that healing journey, and they resonate with me. That's why they would write to me or whatever, and that's why you lovely ladies and I have connected. So yeah, connecting, especially given that abuse, one of the most horrendous things that abuse does to any child or adult is it isolates them. It puts them in
100%.
horrible isolation, and secondary
100%.
to that is that it fills people full of shame, and shame silences us and isolates us again. So to find a community, and within a community, you've got to find the tribe within the community that you fit with, and it's not going to be every person. And I just want to say to Becky that what she said, I too have taken time. I've been off air for about 5 weeks. I think it was a long time because I really needed to decide whether I wanted to continue because of how my mental health has been affected over the last month with what's gone down.
It's triggering.
And it's very triggering. And then when I reflected on what am I about? I am a trauma survivor that wants to be with other survivors that are in the healing process and that value transparency and value lifting each other up, not in false
advocacy.
Correct, yeah, but in the true sense of the word of, you know, how are you going, and I'm here for you if you need me, and I want to be around people like that. So hence I've come back to YouTube. So
The green
thanks,
flag.
Becky.
Yeah,
The green
the green flag.
flags.
Yeah.
I agree with and underline and exclamation point everything that you said. You said that so perfectly and so well, and like, everything that you said. Yeah.
You do have a way with words, Ree.
It's the hair. It's the hair that makes the words come out.
All right, so Susan King has reworded the question, which I think you did say that. So, have any psychiatrists come forward to support the ex-Scientologists? So, Ree, you're a psychotherapist, but also Andy, who joined us at the Melbourne protest, who was actually a volunteer for the SPTV Foundation. She's a psychiatrist or a psychologist? I can't remember.
Psychologist.
So, yeah, there are plenty of in the industry that are speaking out against Scientology.
I want to mention something that I don't know enough about, but I reckon Miriam will back me up on this one, is in the Anderson report. It's very clearly written how and it's written by psychologists, or I can't say who it's written by, but it's
very
written
interesting reading. Very interesting reading.
And it's written by clinical people that are able to articulate it. It's quite old now, that report, but it's so valid.
Yeah.
And they came forward back then. Yeah.
And speaking about all the different methods of hypnosis that they use and stuff like that. It's very, I loved reading that, strangely. But yeah, if anyone, I recommend that people read the Anderson report, which is what actually got Scientology banned in a few states in Australia for a few years. I think it was, WA was 4 years, Victoria was, oh gosh, I can't remember now, 6 years, and South Australia for a couple of years as well. And then they changed it to religion.
That's maybe something if we want to do it, read that out and break that
down.
Oh,
I'd love that. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm down for that.
Well, we should take it in
There's a
turns
lot
to
in
do
there.
things on our channels, because, you know, if we're not, you know, with the simultaneous streaming. So maybe you can do that on your channel, Ree. Like, because
that
we're trying to,
great.
We're trying
That'd
to
be
put
cool.
together. So yeah, we're trying to like get the Australian movement on the go a bit more. Oh, hi, Paralyzed. Sorry, I always get distracted by the chat. So we want to do. So we got our regular Tee and Ree show on Saturdays. We were going to do. Well, I was going to do on my channel again. I feel like I'm stealing all the stuff. Do sort of an update on what is going on down under and cover Australian stories. We're going to we were going to do that. Was that every other Friday or every other Thursday? I can't remember. I think it was every other Friday.
Friday. And then I was going to do Thursday, Tee, Ree, and me.
yeah.
And now, Ree, you need to come up with one.
I will. I'll have a think about that. Something will germinate, I'm sure.
I think it's gonna be fabulous. Yeah. So
Oh,
that would be a cool one to tackle. The Anderson report would be.
I'm excited
necessary.
with the thought of it. Yeah.
I think so. The front groups here are pretty much the same. We've got the Volunteer Ministers, Foundation for a Drug-Free World, the Dianetics Foundation. They did have Youth for Human Rights, but I haven't seen that around. I'm going to do a show on. Sorry,
Can you tell us a little bit about when you were doing volunteer ministries? Because, you know, I've never done it. So,
was it? Yeah, was it? Did you actually do stuff, or did you do like a little bit of stuff and take photos?
No, I was a Scientology baby. Like, I was a Scientology born and bred, and it was in my blood. No, okay, but before I jump to that, I was going to say, add on to that list Scientology missions, because the missions are these small groups that flow up to the bigger organizations. And so for my time, I came out here at 17, lived with Scientology family, and my first job was working for them as well. And I actually worked for them for 4 years, and they were hardcore Scientologists. They were on the OT levels, and they were associated with this Scientology mission, which was in, oh God, I'll remember where it is. But anyways, it's called Life Solutions, and it's in
Australia.
What suburb? It's in the southeastern suburbs of Victoria.
Is it still going?
And yeah, it's still going, and it's run by Tom and Joe Reed, and they're the mission owners. They actually knew my parents from Adelaide. Anyhow,
what's it called? Sorry,
Mitcham. They're in Mitcham, Victoria. You can look them up. Life Solutions. You can present it to screen if you'd like.
Well, yeah, because I think there's actually. Sorry, I'm interrupting because I have to get it out before I forget.
No, that's good.
They used to have a mission in Tasmania, but it shut down about 10 years ago. And I'm pretty sure they've got a thing called that as well. Something Life Solutions like that. Mitcham, Victoria. We're not doing very well at not going on for very long tonight, are we, ladies? Because these amazing ladies are actually... You're supposed to be getting an early night, aren't you? Because they're going protesting tomorrow in Melbourne. So
yes.
All right, I'll try and tell you this real quick. So yeah, so I was doing services because they do the purification rundown. I ended up doing that twice there. Yeah, nice. And then they do like basic services. And they were also involved in the cover up of the sexual assaults that I experienced.
Wow.
And yeah. So I'd like to go and protest there at some stage.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
yeah.
do it
So,
tomorrow.
yeah, so shout out to Tom and Joe Reed. And I spoke to Tom Reed recently. I called him on the phone and said, hey, you remember when I told you about what my father did to me and I was crying my eyes out, and then you said, he actually said, okay, we can help you with that. It's going to cost you $6,000.
Oh,
What the actual hell?
Yeah, for a life repair. He said, you can do a life repair. We'll sort that out for you. That's going to cost you $6,000. And my boyfriend and I had just been through the Purif, and that costed us $3,000 each. So I'd already sunk $6,000 in the recent months at that time.
Is it these guys?
Is that it?
Yeah, because it says Mitcham Road, Mitcham.
There you go. Yeah, Joe. See, it's Tom and Joe.
Oh, you give them a call, guys, and see what they try and extort from you. What's this?
Right. So I asked Tom. I said, just letting you know, I've got a current police case ongoing in regards to, getting justice for the crimes committed against me, and would you be willing to speak to police about that? And he said, I'll think about it, and then hung up, and then I never heard anything back. So yeah.
Gross. I can't believe I didn't know about this. Do you know of any other little ones like this?
So that's the only one that I know, because I obviously had personal experiences with it. So that I would be interested in what other ones are around, because these groups are getting people in on these basic courses. See, they just do life improvement, Purif, Dianetics. So it's really basic stuff. Then they flow people up to the higher organizations. So they would flow people to the Melbourne org. What's that?
They're not squirreling?
No, because they're a Scientology mission, and they probably have to pay a percentage up to the organizations, up to management.
Yeah. Clear body, clear mind, Dianetics. Yeah, right. Okay. Did you see the cover I did of this? Did you see?
No.
I did a cover for oh gosh, I can't Chow Young's. So I've forgotten her name. Chow Young Smut. Is that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah. So she went. They went on the cruise, and they were like parked next to the free winds and everything. And there was a sauna on the boat, and she said she was going to do like a daily. I can't remember what she called it, but she was going to have the clear body, clear mind. But I made her the book cover, and I changed it to queer body, queer mind. And she was going to be reading out of the book every day in the sauna. But I think it was too foggy, or she didn't have signal in there or anything. Drop here. I keep forgetting that you worked in Narconon. We need to talk about that. I keep forgetting. Oh my God. We talk nearly every day, and I still forget.
My colleague worked at Narconon in 2011, so I'd love to know if Mad Drop Bear, what era they were there, because they might know my colleague.
Oh, I haven't got it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So my experience, the last time I did the Purif at Life Solutions in Mitcham. I know, it's pretty funny. So I was so dehydrated that, because you have to go in the sauna every single day, every day. And I was so sick. And so I went to the bathroom, and I literally laid down on the floor because it was the tiles were cool. Yeah. And I just curled up in a ball, and I couldn't move. I was just like, and they made me go back in the sauna because they were like, oh, well, that's what Hubbard says. You have to run it out. Like whatever symptoms you have, you have to go into the sauna until that goes away. I was severely dehydrated, and that went on for a couple of days. But anyhow, so that's like a Scientology mission. And then with regards to the volunteer minister stuff, so locally I was doing book sales on the weekend, like Dianetics books, and I was studying. So I was I did the Purif with that local mission, but then later on I was doing a course, the next course up from that, which is called TRs and Objectives. I was doing that at the Melbourne building, which at that time was on Russell Street in Melbourne. And so on the weekends I would go and sell Dianetics books, or I would go to, like, they would show up at events with the volunteer minister yellow tent, and we would give assists to people. So that's where you're like putting hands on people, and all of it is to, again, sell them basic courses to get them into Scientology.
And
Sell
yeah,
them
and this is
basic
the
life
thing,
improvement books and stuff.
Yeah. And that was another thing I wanted to say about CCHR was that's another front group, and they have that in Australia as well. They do try to recruit through that, because one of the guys that I was protesting with actually went ahead of us, and he went in, had a look around, and they were trying to refer him to the local org. So they definitely are trying to bring people in through that as well, you know, all of them.
All
and the
of
volunteer
it.
ministers,
Every single one. Every single one of those things.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a friend in Africa who was hooked in by the Way to Happiness.
Yeah. Way to Happiness. Yeah, totally. So the Volunteer Ministers program is to introduce new people, bring new people in. But it's also a public relations situation.
Sorry, she's been sitting there a while. Sorry, I just wanted to bring her in.
Okay, sorry. It's a public relations. Sorry, should I give her a chance to say hi to everyone else?
Sorry, I just felt bad because she was sitting there, and I didn't want her to think that I was ignoring her. Hello, Afila.
Yeah.
Are you still there? Are you there, or are you giving up? Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
She might come back.
Okay, we'll keep talking and give us a shout if you're there, all right? Because I know she actually just went into filmed the Sydney building, and I think something happened. So she did a live a minute ago, a little while ago. Yeah. I'll tell you what, Afila, I'm going to remove you and come back in. Sorry.
If she pops back, maybe she can put something in the comments, so then you know that she's there.
Yeah, sorry, mate. I didn't. Oh, you're there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, hello.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry, Miriam. I didn't know what to do.
I'm just saying hello, but anyway, I want you to finish what you were saying.
I know. I'm sorry. Oh God.
Well, I'm so excited you're here, and it's lovely to hear your voice. We're all in a chat together, so we've conversed like just through Messenger, but I've never heard her voice before, and I love what she's doing with documenting different Scientology buildings. It's interesting, and it's valuable. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah. I really appreciate that. I think actually getting teary just hearing you say that, because it feels like such a small thing, but it's important. I actually did go to the Sydney building today, and just I don't get people's faces or protests, but I just want to document. And you never know what you might come across, and people's faces, people seeing their family members or whatever it might be. Anyway.
But also just the different setups, and also like it gives it visibility, because just what you had shared with us, the videos that you shared with us, and they're on. Should we give her YouTube channel as well?
I think.
Can we post?
We're actually going to do something next Friday, aren't we? Or I'm going to play your videos and stuff.
Yes.
I think, there's a lot of smaller channels that aren't getting enough recognition, and I feel has actually done some really awesome stuff. She's been to Canberra a couple of times and filmed their building there. You went to one of the missions in Sydney, and then the one in the city today. I think is the second time you've been to the city, I think. I can't remember.
Yeah.
So I really want to get what you're doing out there, but I know you want to remain sort of anonymous, and they took a photo, didn't they? So, but
channel is just Afila 8, as in AFILA 8. Right. But I sort of jumped in because Miriam, when you were just talking about a mission, and I've been hopping in and out, so I missed a lot. But because I went to have a look at the mission in Leichhardt in Sydney, and I don't know anything about it. I assumed that they don't do too much. But you were mentioning things like Purif, and that really scared me, because that on their website, Well, not necessarily on the website, but I think there was a website that reports on the activity of charities, and you have to nominate what it is that you do. And the only thing that they had on there was handing out Way to Happiness booklets. Like that's all they do in terms of their charity programs.
Okay, let me just look them up and see if they have a website.
They
So
do.
when you
And
say oh, sorry. You go. They do. Sorry.
they do, and I think they may even have ones that are called Dianetics as well. When I had a quick look, I know that they're used as a recruitment tool, and that's definitely not good.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They might be. I'm just looking at them. See, they might be smaller than.
By the way, I'm walking around.
That I was showing. Oh, that's all right.
What's it called?
Okay,
Sounds probably not great.
So they may look. See, it's possible that they are smaller than that mission I was telling you about that has the Purif, because I'm seeing just like Dianetics on them on their website. So it may well be there. They could just be a Dianetics mission. That's also very, very possible. That's what I'm seeing on their website, because they just might not have the facilities for the Purif and all that. Yeah. But there probably is another mission in somewhere around there that does do that. Yeah. It'd be interesting to look into that. So, yeah.
And when you say they do the Purif, do they actually have the saunas there and everything, or?
The sauna, they have the sauna at the Mitcham, Victoria, Life Solutions. So, they have a nice, so it's a house. It's done out of a house. And it's basically in the backyard. There's a pool, there's a sauna, and then there's like kind of like a small building, like almost like a granny flat, we would call it. That has, which is where they also do stuff in there. But what happens is,
oh, sorry.
So this mission, like the missions are a great way to bring green people in who know nothing about Scientology. Like the people that I was on the Purif with, they were people who were struggling with substance issues, like particularly cocaine. There was 3 of them, and it was 2 women and a man. And the 3 of them, obviously, would party a lot and they get on the cocaine, and so it's like, but they knew nothing about Scientology. But you see, if they got some relief out of doing the sauna, doing the Purif, then they could be like, oh, well, how about you do this? This will improve your life more, and that's how they do it.
Yeah, I think Life Solutions is also the name of a different business as well. So now I'm curious to look that up.
I'm sure, because it seems like it's a common type of name. But so I was going to say about the Volunteer Ministers Program, it kind of has a couple of functions, because one of the things it does is it's a public relations thing. So it's basically about creating a good name for Scientology. So like and they would do that with the emergency services workers in particular. And that's what we were sort of like. So when I was we were in Innisfail in far north Queensland after Cyclone Larry. And we were targeting the emergency workers there. We were giving them assists. So you'd have them lay down on the massage table, and we'd like put hands on them. And then we were trying to sell them like the basic, they're like these little pamphlet, little short, very simple kind of booklets. And you would like hand those out, and it's just very, very basic Scientology. Just gives them a little taste for it. And but then the other things that they would do is like we would clear out, just clearing branches away from people's properties and stuff like that. But it was funny because there was a lot of commentary by the locals that we were maybe targeting like well-off people, because I didn't realize where we were going was all these like holiday homes, and it was along the beach and stuff. And anyways, but we had a huge tent set up right in the middle of the town, as well. So
was that in Australia, Miriam?
Yeah, in Innisfail in far north Queensland after Cyclone Larry.
It makes me very, very mad, because there is genuinely programs and groups that will go in to help people who are in hospitals, whether it's spiritual or religious, but it's not BS like Scientology is, you know.
Yes, so this
that
has an agenda.
Makes me mad. Yeah, exactly. It's deceitful.
Yeah. Okay, so Cyclone Larry was 2006. Yeah,
Okay.
March 2006. It was far
It's
north
all about the image, isn't it? The PR and everything. And I imagine there was lots of photographs being taken and videos of people raking leaves.
Videos. Yeah, and we ended up in the international event, the next international event that was filmed in Los Angeles, because my brother, Ben, he still is staff there in Los Angeles, and he was like, I think I saw you on the event on the big screen, because they took tons of footage. So so it's for the external public relations, but it's also internally to say, like, look at all the good things that we're doing, and to ramp people up. And what happens is then they contribute to the Scientology pool of money, which is the IAS. So all those funds that are gathered for the IAS, this is part of, like, they use this footage for fundraising. Yeah.
I think it's more so that it's more so internally than externally, because externally we don't hear about it. They're not in the media. They're not, they're not on telly or anything like that, because they promote themselves as like one of the biggest sort of helping, what's the bloody word? People that help people, like one of the biggest companies that do that or whatever, and they're not, and in fact,
when that happened, when that whole disaster happened, and like the call went out, like, who can volunteer to go and help after this disaster? And I was like, okay, cool, I'll go. And I expected, like, because I had grown up going to these IS events, and I was like, oh, of course, there's this pool of money that's going to take care of everything. But I was kind of shocked to realize, like, oh, that's not the case. Like, I had to fundraise for my own flights and everything by, like, calling around to people.
Oh, wow.
And then flew over there, and, like, where we stayed basically was, like, one of the halls. It was empty, and we just slept on the floor of this hall. And there was, like, far north Queensland, if anyone's ever been there, the insects are insane at night. It's very tropical, so you just had things like flying into you. And then there was all these cane toads, so you had to walk outside to go to the toilets. They were separate to the hall. And oh my gosh, I was you're like dodging cane toads, and
oh my gosh.
But anyway, so that I was surprised, like, oh, the funding is not really it doesn't really go to this. Then they sent some staff over from Sydney, some like Sea Org members, and they then provided food and supplies. So we stocked up on a bunch of supplies. So there was some funding that came from Scientology at that point, but it wasn't to the degree that I thought would be.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to see what on the IAS, if anyone gets footage of it, of the propaganda, because I want to see if they put up the stuff that me and Journey have actually reported to the FBI, the fake stuff in Africa.
Wow.
I bet they do, because they've got it on loads of different sites, because they've got like their own media like websites and stuff, and they put it in a couple of the Ugandan newspapers as well. So I'm really curious to see if that comes up. That would just be ridiculous. So sorry, what were you going to say? Affila? Not Affila. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Either way, 100% you're right. That'll be interesting to see. And the story you just told, and you're right about it's about internal propaganda. Like look at all these wonderful things that we're doing. So Miriam, your story, I don't know if you guys saw the Leo, I forget his surname, who came out and spoke. He worked for IAS, and the Mexican guy, he thought he was raising money for like the magazine and these programs. So he's like, oh, even though I'm having a shit time, I'm doing good because it's raising money for this and for that. And then every time there was something happening, oh, well, you actually need to pay for your own booklets and your own this and that. And he's like, well,
Right.
what have we funded for
Money
then?
going, yeah.
It's 100%.
100%.
It's a scam. It's a complete scam against their members.
Yeah.
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 Crazy.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
I'm just looking through that bloody website, Miriam, and they've like put right. So the life improvement courses.
Mm-hmm.
Check this out. Hang on.
Which website is this on?
The one in Mitcham. How to be a successful parent. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Raising an independent and responsible child is not a hit or miss activity. This course contains vital knowledge on the role of love and affection. Love and affection.
God.
How to create an understanding relationship with the child, the exact use of discipline without reducing self-determinism. Sorry, excuse me.
Blah, 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 blah.
Self-determinism when you're constantly put down and made to feel like you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Like, it's just
bullshit.
Gross.
It's
So
all
gross.
bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, ladies, I've got to wrap it up. It's been 2 hours and 5 minutes. I've been hiding yawns. And I need to, I haven't had any dinner yet. I had a roast dinner at 11 o'clock last night.
Yeah, stop doing that.
After we finished doing the live, we were like talking for an hour after that as well, you know? So it's
Well, Afila, thank you so much for jumping in here. What a pleasure
Thank you.
and what an awesome surprise. I've really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
And,
I appreciate all of you guys, and I'll catch up on the video. Lots of love.
Yeah,
Bye.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Talk to you soon.
Bye. Oh, there we
This
go.
is
All
so
right.
fun, guys. What I get to interact with all these amazing, cool people. What?
Yep.
This is so awesome. I
know,
love
should I
it.
just have a massive feed before we come on, you know? Like, I haven't actually eaten since lunchtime. But yeah, no, there'll be many more to come.
That's right.
Yeah. I don't know. What did she say the noise was?
She said she was walking around, I think. Yeah.
Was she wearing a belly dancing costume
It sounded
or something?
like bangles or something. It
Yeah.
sounded like bangles.
It was soothing. I was enjoying that.
Yeah.
No, I love this. Is so cool. All right. Well, we want to end it here.
Yeah.
I don't think we've got any more questions. Oh, there was the Tom Cruise
Thanks,
thing I was going to
everyone.
play.
Nah, forget Tom.
Yeah, no, fuck him. I'll do it.
We'll do him another time.
Yeah.
I'll do it as a short or something. But yeah, it was just because Irish Mark put pseudoscience, and he calls psychiatry pseudoscience, and I was just like, oh god, you know. But yeah, anyway, thank you so
I was
much.
going to say one thing. When I was in Innisfail, super quickly, I just remember like the locals yelling out because I was wearing the yellow volunteer minister shirt, and I was just wearing like a pair of shorts. I was much more fit back then. And anyways, the locals would just yell out, Tom Cruise! Like randomly, like across the street, like all the time.
How did it make you
It must have been
feel?
such a weird experience for them, for all these Scientology volunteer ministers to like come into their town and like,
because
it's just
it used
bizarre.
to, the t-shirts used to say Scientology volunteer ministers, but I think I know in Australia they just say volunteer ministers now, but in Africa it still says Scientology, you know, because they're not as aware of it over there. So, like, how did it make you feel when they shouted out Tom Cruise? Like, what did you think? Like, what
It
were you
was
going on
kind of
about?
like the Tom Cruise thing for me has always been a bit annoying, even like when I was a Scientologist and when I wasn't a Scientologist, because Tom Cruise had nothing to do with me or my life, or like he just wasn't part of my experience. The only thing that was a big thing was when he got the Freedom Medal of Valor, and I watched him go up on stage, and that was annoying for me. I was a Scientologist at that time, and Dave Miscavige he was like, he is the most dedicated Scientologist in the world, and I was like,
so insulting.
For me, I'd grown up in the Sea Org. I'm like, what, you saying he's more dedicated than Sea Org members who sacrifice everything, sacrifice their children, their lives, their, you know, everything.
Well, he's asked to join. He's actually asked to join the Sea Org, and David said no. We need you to be an actor and everything. Probably because he doesn't want him to see how horrendous it is. I don't know. But then I think he does know now. You know,
I don't think he's ever asked to join the Sea Org. Like, there's no way.
I can't. No, because he's like really, really committed and he wants to do it. And he said, "Oh, I want to join the Sea Org." I can't remember who said it, but yeah, it was definitely. I've definitely heard that he asked to join the Sea Org and he was turned down. Like they said, no. Oh no, you've got to be like our front man and carry on making movies. That's what you were born to do. Because they didn't want him to see what was going on in the Sea Org. But then I think maybe later on, I think he realizes what's going on in the Sea Org now, because I'm sure he's seen like David Miscavige. I've heard that he's actually tried to encourage Tom to like be physically violent with people. Sometimes you got to give them a smack, to get them in line.
I don't know about that. All I'm saying is like, I don't give a fuck about Tom Cruise. So he's just like, for me, I was born and raised in it. And like, it was not any part of my experience. And
it's not like every Scientologist knows him personally, it's just, that's not how it is.
No, definitely not. And like, I cannot watch his movies.
Yeah.
Which sucks because it's funny because sorry, wrapping it up, but my son was like, somehow my son has recently learned that Tom Cruise was a Scientologist and he knows a little bit about my background, and he's like, oh wait, Mom, Tom Cruise is a Scientologist. And I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, yeah, he's kind of annoying though, isn't he? And he's like, he's a stunt man. He does his own stunts. Like, it's like, I'm like, oh God, this child is like having to reconcile like these two ideas. Anyways, funny. Yeah. But yeah, like, so yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't mean he's not a prick just because he's a stunt man.
Does his own stunts. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to put it as the outro. I'm going to put the Tom Cruise thing as the outro, okay?
Okay. Now, before we go,
perfect.
I just want to ask people that if they're free tomorrow, we will be back on at approximately 11 a.m. Melbourne time. We are going to go and protest at the Scientology org in Melbourne. So I will be streaming live at the org tomorrow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. It's been a hoot, and I just want to do it every day. We should just do it every day, but it's not.
Actually, this one was a bit tougher. I felt this was a bit tougher because it was chunky details for a while there going, Miriam. So thank you very much for sharing that much for us.
Yeah, and I hope it doesn't stir stuff up for you, and that it does the opposite and helps to get it out. Like, but yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that.
We've ended in a very rounded and healing way, and I think that's been a good thing.
Yeah.
We covered such a variety of topics, which was really cool, and then
we've
already got more stuff lined up for next time.
Yeah,
it's really good.
I've written it down.
I love it. I love it. I have loads of stuff I was going to say. I was going to show a video, whatever. It doesn't matter. We had a good time. We've got some awareness out there. We've answered some questions and stuff. So it's all good. All right. I'm going to.
Thanks for being here, everyone.
How do I play the outro? You just, to do it. Do you press end?
Click on your outro button. No, click on your outro button. You can add the video there.
Yeah, no, I've added
and then when you
video.
end the stream, so then click end the stream and it should let you do it.
Okay, all right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much.
Goodbye, everybody.
And I'll see you later. I'll be watching tomorrow. Maybe not at the beginning because it'll be 11 o'clock. So that'll be what 8 o'clock here. I will not be up at 8 o'clock unless my son wakes me up. But yeah, lots of love to you. Lots of love to everyone in chat, and we'll speak to you soon. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe and give the bell a little tickle, and the same for these ladies as well. I have left their links in the description. Thanks so much for being here, and bye. See you later. See ya.
I've never agreed with psychiatry, ever. Before I was a Scientologist, I never agreed with psychiatry. And then when I started studying the history of psychiatry, I started realizing more and more why I didn't agree with psychiatry. And I know that psychiatry is a pseudoscience.
But Tom, if she said that this particular thing helped her feel better, whether it was the antidepressant or going to a counselor or a psychiatrist, isn't that enough?
Now, you have to understand this. Here we are today, where I talk out against drugs and psychiatric abuses, of electric shocking people, okay, against their will, of drugging children with them not knowing. the effects of these drugs. Do you know what Adderall is? Do you know Ritalin? Do you know now that Ritalin is a street drug? Do you understand that?
The difference is, this was not against her will, though. But this wasn't against Brooke's will.
Matt, I'm asking you a question.
I understand there's abuse of all of these things.
No, you see, here's the problem. You don't know the history of psychiatry. I do.
Aren't there examples, and might not Brooke Shields be an example of someone who benefited from one of those drugs?
All it does is mask the problem, Matt. And if you understand the history of it, it masks the problem. That's what it does. That's all it does. You're not getting to the reason why. There is no such thing as a chemical imbalance.
So postpartum depression to you is
Matt,
kind of a little psychological gobbledygook?
No, I did not say that.
I'm just asking, what would you call it?
Matt, now you're talking about two different things.
But that's what she went on the antidepressant for.
But what happens to the antidepressant, all it does is mask the problem. There's ways of vitamins and through exercise and various things. I'm not saying that that isn't real. That's not what I'm saying. That's an alteration of what I'm saying. I'm saying that drugs aren't the answer. That these drugs are very dangerous. They're mind-altering, antipsychotic drugs. And there are ways of doing it without that, so that we don't end up in a brave new world. The thing that I'm saying about Brooke is that there's misinformation, okay? And she doesn't understand the history of psychiatry. She doesn't understand in the same way that you don't understand it, man.
But a little bit what you're saying, Tom, is you say you want people to do well, but you want them to do well by taking the road that you approve of, as opposed to a road that may work for them.
No, I'm not.
Well, if antidepressants work for Brooke Shields, why isn't that okay?
I disagree with it. And I think that there's a higher and better quality of life. And I think that promoting, for me personally, see, you're saying, I can't discuss what I want to discuss?
No, you absolutely can.
But Matt, you're going in and saying that I can't discuss that.
I'm only asking, isn't there a possibility that, do you examine the possibility that these things do work for some people? That yes, there are abuses. And yes, maybe they've gone too far in certain areas. Maybe there are too many kids on Ritalin. Maybe electric shock.
Too many kids on Ritalin. Matt,
I'm just saying, but aren't there examples where it works?
Matt, you're glib. You don't even know what Ritalin is. If you start talking about chemical imbalance, you have to evaluate and read the research papers on how they came up with these theories, Matt. Okay? That's what I've done. And you go and you say, where's the medical test? Where's the blood test that says how much Ritalin you're supposed to get?
It's very impressive to listen to you, because clearly you've done the homework and you know the subject.
And you should. And you should do that also, because just knowing people who are on Ritalin isn't enough. You should be a little bit more responsible in knowing.
I'm not prescribing Ritalin, Tom, and I'm not asking anyone else to do it.
You're saying
I know some people who seem to have been helped by it.
But you're saying, this is a very important issue.
This is a very,
and you know what? And you're here on the Today Show,
right?
And to talk about it in a way of saying, well, isn't it okay, and being reasonable about it when you don't know, and I do. I think that you should be a little bit more responsible in knowing what it is, because you communicate to people.
But you're now telling me that your experiences with the people I know, which are zero, are more important than my experiences.
What do you mean by that?
You're telling me what's worked for people I know, or hasn't worked for people I know, and I'm telling you I've lived with these people, and they're better.
So you're advocating it?
I am not. I'm telling you, in their case, in their individual case, it worked. I am not going to go out and say, get your kids on Ritalin, it's the cure-all and the end-all.
Matt, but here's the point. What is an ideal scene in life? Okay. Ideal scene is someone not having to take antipsychotic drugs.
I would agree.
Okay, so now you look at it and you go, okay, a departure from that ideal scene is someone taking drugs. Okay, and then you go, okay, what is the theory and the science behind that justifies that?
Let me take this more general, because I think you and I could go around in circles on this for a while, and I respect your opinion on it. Do you want more people to understand Scientology? Would that be a goal of yours?
You know what? Absolutely, of course. You know,
how do you go about that?
You just communicate about it. And the important thing is, like, you and I talk about it, whether it's, look, if I want to know something, I go and find out. Because I don't talk about things that I don't understand. I'll say, you know what? I'm not so sure about that. I'll go find more information about it, so I can come to an opinion based on the information that I have.